I'm Jerome Davis. I'm the artistic director of Burning Coal Theater Company here in Raleigh. I went to college and got an undergraduate degree at Middle Tennessee State University, near where I grew up in Middle Tennessee. I moved to New York when I was in my mid-20s, and I studied there, among others, with Uta Hagen, who was one of the 3 or 4 great acting coaches of the 20th century. And I somehow managed to get into her class on and off. When I was not out of town working as an actor, I would come back and she would always let me back into the class. So I was on and off there for 7 years. That was a kind of education. But, you know, in theater, most of your education comes with doing. I tell young people, get in the room with somebody who knows more than you and stay there for a while, And that's what I mostly did for the first 30 years or so of my life. I got a teaching certificate when I was in college. I thought that, a lot of theater people think of teaching as a fallback position, and so I did that, and that taught me that I didn't want to be a teacher. No, that's not true. I had some very good experiences there, but it did teach me a lot about how to command an audience, without going overboard. I think school kids can read you if you're desperate, if you're trying too hard, and so you have to learn to be in control and forceful, but also not desperate. And so that was a real education. But the acting classes that I took with Uta Hagen, with Nikos Sakaropoulos, who founded the Williamstown Theater Festival in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and with the great acting, directing, and teacher, Julie Bavasso, who's most known for her appearance in the movie Moonstruck with Nicolas Cage and Cher. But she was a theater person as well. And so the three of them, Nikos and Julie and Uta Hagen, really set the foundation for what came afterward for me. I think the most important thing when you're from I was born in Nashville, but I was raised in a small town about 30 miles southeast of Nashville. And I think many people in this vast country of ours, they think that the performing arts is something that that those people over there do. That's not for me. That's for those people way over there in the distance. And part of that's because they're never in a room with them. They're never in the same room with a great actor or a great director or a great painter or photographer. And so they can't conceive of it. And when I got to New York, I found myself in the room with these people pretty soon. And I wasn't at their level, I wasn't performing at their level, but I was just in proximity to it. And so you watch them and you learn from them, and most importantly, you begin to understand that they're just people like you. Burning Coal produces plays. Our mission statement is literate, visceral, affecting theater that is experienced, not just seen, but experienced. And so we try to hit our audiences to sort of knock them back in their chairs, to keep them interested, and to do plays that are about something, not propaganda, not plays that tell you something, but plays that ask serious questions. That doesn't mean they can't be comedies or musicals too. Some of the best plays are musicals, Man of La Mancha, for instance, is very much about something, but it's also a great evening, great fun. So we try to find a balance of those things, but never let go of the part that's more educational in nature. There's an old joke in the theater, the producer is the person with the broom in their hand, and I think that is no more true saying exists. The other saying that is applicable is, if you want something done, do it yourself. And that's what happened. I spent 20 years or so trying to get acting jobs, and I got some. I had a pretty good career in that regard, but I didn't, it's not what I wanted. I didn't want to sit around waiting for the phone to ring for somebody else to decide, you'd be good in that part. I wanted to make my own work, and then I met my wife, who was very interested in that as well. And between the two of us, we had the ability to start this theater, and I've been running it now for 27 years. I think all the previous roles prepared me to some degree, but most importantly, it was being in the room with people who knew what they were doing. A lot of times in the arts, people set out to do something and they don't really know how to do it. They've seen glimpses of it, but they don't really know how to do it, and so they fail because they're going down the wrong alleys, and it's very time consuming. It's very physically stressful and emotionally stressful. And if you put all that into it and then you fail at it, it's not hard. It's not that easy to get back up off the canvas and take another swing. So a lot of people quit after one or two or three efforts. And so I think that it's very important for young people to learn first how to do it and then try to do it, as opposed to just jumping off the deep end right out of college. I used to doodle seasons of plays, I would be, drawing out a list of, well, what if we put the Crucible there instead of Hamlet? What would that be like? And it used to excite me to no end. And I think by that time I was in my mid-teens, and so I did by then have a pretty good idea that I wanted to do something like this. I think I wanted to be William Shakespeare as a young person. Shakespeare, was a poor kid from a rural area, and he changed the world, and he did it through his art, and I think that's what all artists want, really. I don't think all of them are willing to admit it, because it's such an impossible dream, to borrow from Man of La Mancha. It's an impossible dream, and it also sounds a little self-important, But the honest truth is that I think all artists really are trying to save the world, trying to fix things, If they're not, I don't think it's art. I think it might be something else. Pretty, attractive, aesthetically pleasing, commercially viable, but I don't think it's art unless that impulse is at the bottom of it. I have some very specific things. One is that you should read American Theater Magazine. And particularly in the back of it, they have a list of the plays that are being produced across the country in all 50 states at the theaters who are member theaters. That's not all the theaters, but there's about 500 of them. Those are the professional theaters. And you read that thing each month and you begin to see repeat names, play titles, authors, directors. And so you begin to build up this catalog in your head that tells you, I should go audition for that play because everybody's doing it now, or I should go audition for that play because that person who's very hot right now is directing it, that kind of thing. So get to know the business is part of it. American Theater Magazine is one way to do that. There's also one in England called Theater Record that you have to subscribe to online. It's very expensive, so if you can talk your school into getting a subscription for you, that would be advisable. Theater Record publishes all the reviews of every play that opens in London over a 2-week period. So every 2 weeks they come out with a new issue and it has all these reviews. You don't have to read every one of them, but you read enough that you get an idea of which plays might have a role in it for you, or if your director might be a play that you'd like to read and consider directing. And then the other thing I would say is what I said before, is get in a room with people who know what they're doing, do anything, serve them coffee, sweep the floor, run the light board, whatever it takes. There's always room for somebody else if you ask politely. And get in that room and stay there and learn, and don't try to step on somebody's toes. Just watch and listen. And after a few years, you'll begin to have a very good sense of what it takes to run a theater or to have a career as an actor. And maybe you'll learn that you don't want it, but isn't it better to learn it that way than to spend 20 years of your life and then go, gosh, I never really wanted this in the first place, So that's my recommendation to young people.